The Bermuda Triangle, a name that instantly sparks mystery and fear. 5 Navy bombers take off from Florida on a clear day, then vanish without a trace. A 500-foot cargo ship with over 300 people aboard disappears without so much as a single distress call. No wreckage, no answers, just gone. It makes you wonder, what's really going on out there? These stories all point to one infamous stretch of ocean, a place on Earth that doesn't exist on any official map, the Bermuda Triangle. It's a patch of the Atlantic said to swallow anything that enters. From whispers of alien abductions to rumors of lost Atlantis technology, no theory has been too wild when it comes to this place. But here's the twist. This mystery wasn't discovered at all. It was manufactured. It's not the ocean that's special. It's the story we've been told. Built on a perfect storm of severe weather, human error, missing records, and a few very profitable lies. Because the real story here isn't about what the ocean took. It's about how we created a legend, sold it to the world, and why it refuses to die. So, how do you manufacture a mystery that captivates the entire world? First, you need a location. But here's the foundational secret the mythmakers never mention. The Bermuda Triangle doesn't actually exist. It appears on no official world maps. The US government officially states it doesn't recognize the Bermuda Triangle as a real region of the Atlantic Ocean. Its boundaries change depending on which author is telling the story, sometimes spanning 500,000 square miles, other times more than 1 million. This isn't a weakness of the legend, it's its greatest strength. Because the borders aren't fixed, proponents can redraw them at will to absorb any disaster that happens in the North Atlantic. A shipwreck near Ireland? Just stretch the map. With a phantom location established, the stage was set for the storytellers. The modern legend is surprisingly new, a 20th century creation. It wasn't born from ancient mariners, but from newspapers and pulp magazines. It all started with a spark. In 1950, an AP reporter named E.V.W. Jones was the first to note a series of mysterious disappearances of ships and planes between Florida and Bermuda. 2 years later, in a magazine called Fate, writer George X. Sand took it a step further. He was the first to lay out the now famous triangular area where these losses supposedly took place. But the legend needed a catchy name. And in February 1964, a pulp author named Vincent Gaddis delivered. In an article for Argosy magazine, he coined the terrifying phrase, the deadly Bermuda Triangle. Gaddis was the first to explicitly argue that these weren't just isolated tragedies, but part of a larger, sinister pattern. The idea was now smoldering. But one man was about to pour gasoline on the fire and turn this legend into a global phenomenon. His name was Charles Berlitz. His 1974 book, The Bermuda Triangle, became a massive worldwide bestseller, selling millions of copies. Berlitz wasn't just suggesting a mystery, he was selling a paranormal blockbuster. He went beyond simple disappearances and explicitly claimed they were linked to UFOs and leftover energy technology from the lost city of Atlantis. The timing was perfect. It was the height of the Cold War and the space race, a period of intense public fascination with UFOs, the paranormal, and advanced technology. Berlitz gave the world a story it was desperate to believe. With the stage set and the world hooked, the legend makers needed their star exhibits. So they went back through history and rewrote the facts, turning conventional tragedies into proof of the paranormal. And their cornerstone case was Flight 19. The myth of Flight 19 is simple and terrifying. On a clear afternoon, 5 U.S. Navy Avenger torpedo bombers on a routine training mission flew into the triangle and vanished. Radio transmissions supposedly described compasses gone haywire and strange visual phenomena before the squadron disappeared. A Martin Mariner flying boat sent to search for them also vanished without a trace, another victim of the same mysterious force. It's the perfect paranormal story, a ghost squadron swallowed by the sky. But the official records don't tell a story of strange forces. They tell a story of human error, compounded by deteriorating weather. First, that clear afternoon, it's a key part of the myth, but it's false.
Meteorological records from December 5, 1945, show the weather was worsening throughout the afternoon, with rough seas and high winds hampering visibility. The mystery wasn't in the sky, it was in the cockpit. The flight leader, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, was an experienced aviator, but he was new to the area and reportedly had a history of navigational difficulties. The actual radio transcripts don't reveal a pilot witnessing the supernatural. They reveal a man who was hopelessly lost. Taylor became convinced both of his compasses were malfunctioning and mistakenly believed he was over the Florida Keys. Based on this single, fatal assumption, he made the decision to lead his flight northeast, a course that took his 14 airmen farther and farther out into the open Atlantic Ocean. Other pilots in the flight could be heard on the radio suggesting they should fly west, which would have taken them to the Florida coast, but Taylor overruled them. And the rescue plane that also vanished? It didn't vanish. It exploded. The crew of a tanker in the area, the SS Gaines Mills, reported witnessing a massive explosion in the sky at the precise time and location of the Mariner's last known position. These PBM Mariner planes were known for being vulnerable to catastrophic explosions due to the accumulation of gasoline vapors. They were sometimes called flying gas tanks. Perhaps the final twist is this. The official Navy investigation initially blamed pilot error for the loss of Flight 19, but partly to spare the family of Lieutenant Taylor from blame, the finding was later amended to cause unknown. That single compassionate change created an information vacuum, a void that mythmakers were more than happy to fill with their own profitable lies. But Flight 19 was just the opening act. The legend needed a bigger, more imposing victim. It needed a monster of the sea. It needed the USS Cyclops.
The legend of the USS Cyclops is a story of epic proportions. A colossal 542-foot Navy supply ship with 306 crew and passengers vanishes without a trace in March 1918. No wreckage, no survivors, and most importantly, no SOS. Its sudden and silent disappearance is presented as irrefutable proof of an overwhelming instantaneous force unique to the Triangle. It's a terrifying story, and this one is a genuine, profound maritime tragedy. But the evidence points not to a supernatural event, but to a ship that was doomed before it ever left port. The Cyclops was a deeply troubled vessel. It was sailing with one of its two engines disabled due to a cracked cylinder, reducing its power and maneuverability. It was also known to have structural issues. But its most critical problem was its cargo. It was overloaded with 10,800 tons of dense manganese ore, a material far heavier than the coal it was designed to carry, making the ship top-heavy and dangerously unstable in rough seas. One leading theory points to catastrophic structural failure. Investigators believe that years of carrying acidic coal had likely corroded the ship's internal support beams. That pre-existing weakness, combined with the stress from the shifting heavy ore and a powerful storm known to have been in the area, could have caused the ship's hull to simply break apart and sink almost instantly. And here's the crucial detail the mythmakers always leave out. Two of the Cyclops' sister ships, the Proteus and the Nereus, also vanished without a trace along similar routes while carrying the same kind of heavy ore cargo. This wasn't a pattern of paranormal events, it was a pattern of flawed ship design. Another perfectly scientific explanation? A rogue wave. Once thought to be a Sayers myth, scientists have now confirmed that monster waves exceeding 100 feet can and do form in the open ocean. A simulation demonstrated that a wave of that size could break the back of a large vessel like the Cyclops, sinking it in 2 to 3 minutes, far too quickly for the crew to send a distress signal. So, what really took the USS Cyclops? A disabled engine, a dangerously heavy cargo, a weakened structure, and a violent storm. There's no need for a mystery force. It was a perfect storm of very terrestrial problems. But it wasn't just the vessels that vanished completely that built the legend. It was also the ones that were found, with no one aboard, the eerie tales of the so-called ghost ships.
What's scarier than a ship that vanishes is a ship that's found, floating and empty, with no sign of its crew. The ghost ship is a core pillar of the Bermuda Triangle legend. Take the popular tale of the Ellen Austin from 1881. The story goes that the schooner discovered an abandoned derelict at sea. A prize crew was placed aboard to sail it to port, but after being separated in a storm, the derelict was found again, once more completely empty. The second prize crew met the same fate, and the ghost ship vanished forever. It's a bone-chilling story. The only problem? It never happened. It is a piece of nautical folklore, not a documented historical event. Extensive research by investigator Larry Couchet found no mention of such an incident in Lloyd's of London shipping records or in contemporary newspaper archives. The story appears to have originated in a 1943 book that cited no primary sources. But if you can't find a real ghost ship story, you can always steal one. The mythmakers were experts at hijacking real tragedies that had nothing to do with the triangle. Enter the Carroll A. Deering. Now this was a genuine ghost ship. In 1921, the five-masted schooner was found hard aground and deserted at Diamond Shoals, off the coast of Cape Hatteras, North Carolina. The ship's logbook, navigational equipment, the crew's personal belongings, and the lifeboats were all missing. It remains a legitimate maritime mystery to this day. But its connection to the Bermuda Triangle was invented decades later by mythmakers. The wreck occurred well outside the commonly accepted boundaries of the triangle. The official government investigation at the time didn't consider supernatural causes. The leading theories were mutiny or piracy. And that's the playbook. If a good story doesn't exist, you invent one. If a real mystery happens somewhere else, you hijack it and pretend it's part of your pattern. These rewritten histories and hijacked tragedies became the foundation for the legend. But to sell millions of books and create a global phenomenon, the myth needed a truly explosive explanation. It needed aliens, time warps, and lost cities. With a foundation of twisted facts and fake history, the mythmakers were ready to introduce their headline acts. These are the paranormal theories that sold millions of books. The most famous, championed by Charles Berlitz, connect the triangle to the lost city of Atlantis and extraterrestrials. The claim is that the region is a hunting ground for UFOs, which abduct ships and planes for study. This idea was famously depicted in the film Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which showed the crew of Flight 19 as alien abductees. The Atlantis theory suggests that powerful energy technology from the mythical city, supposedly on the seabed, interferes with modern navigation. As proof, proponents often point to the Bimini Road, a submerged rock formation they claim is part of the lost city. The reality? These theories are entirely speculative. Geologists widely agree that the Bimini Road is a natural formation of beach rock. Another popular theory, pulled from science fiction, suggests the triangle contains a time warp or a portal to another dimension. The main evidence for this is a dramatic story from a pilot named Bruce Gernon. In 1970, Gernon claimed he flew through a strange tunnel-like cloud he called electronic fog. He reported experiencing time dilation, covering 100 miles in a fraction of the expected time. But Gernon's account can be plausibly explained by known phenomena. Pilots flying through intense thunderstorms can experience extreme disorientation, and electrical displays like St. Elmo's fire can create bizarre visual effects. The perceived time jump is likely attributable to strong tailwinds and a simple navigational miscalculation. And some theories are even more bizarre. One piece of folklore connects the disappearances to a demoness from the ancient Hindu epic the Ramayana. The story says a demoness named Simhika had the power to grab a being's shadow to pull them down from the sky. After being defeated, the legend claims, she fled to the Atlantic and now resides within the triangle. These paranormal theories all function in the same way. They are a God of the gaps argument, where a clear explanation for a tragedy is missing, an extraordinary cause is inserted to fill the informational void. So if it's not aliens or demons, what is really going on in this part of the ocean? The truth is a combination of powerful natural forces and one other factor that's far more common than any paranormal portal. The consensus among scientific and official bodies is that the incidents attributed to the Bermuda Triangle are the result of natural environmental hazards and human factors. There is no single mystery to be solved, but rather a collection of separate incidents, each with its own logical explanation. First, the environment. The Bermuda Triangle is located in a uniquely challenging and volatile part of the Atlantic Ocean. It's sliced by the Gulf Stream, a powerful ocean current that's effectively a swift and turbulent river within the sea. Its current can generate sudden, violent weather changes, and crucially, it can disperse wreckage from a crash so quickly that it contributes to the vanished without a trace narrative. The region is famously known as Hurricane Alley. It is a convergence zone for weather systems from multiple directions, creating a uniquely volatile and unpredictable environment where massive storms can form with little warning. It's a breeding ground for rogue waves. Once considered a myth, these scientifically confirmed waves can reach heights of up to 100 feet. A wave that size is powerful enough to destroy even a large vessel in moments, leaving little to no evidence behind. It has extreme topography. The ocean floor here contains hazardous shallow reefs that have wrecked hundreds of ships over the centuries. In stark contrast, it's also home to some of the deepest oceanic trenches in the world, including the Puerto Rico Trench, which plunges over 27,000 feet. Any wreckage that sinks there is effectively lost forever. Even some of the more scientific-sounding theories don't hold up. The idea that eruptions of methane gas from the sea floor sink ships is popular, but there is no evidence a gas eruption of that scale has happened in the region in modern times. And the region's known magnetic anomalies are a well-understood navigational principle that modern vessels can easily compensate for. But all of those natural dangers pale in comparison to the single most common factor. The most probable cause for the majority of disappearances is the same within the triangle as it is everywhere else in the world, a combination of human error and mechanical failure. The region is one of the world's most heavily traveled shipping and flight corridors. That high volume of traffic statistically ensures that accidents will happen. The mystery is not that an unusual number of vessels are lost. It's simply that an enormous number of vessels pass through it safely every day. So with all these logical explanations, how did the myth become so powerful? It happened because the authors who promoted the legend were incredibly sloppy, while one librarian decided to do the work they wouldn't.
That librarian was Larry Couchet. In 1975, he published the first and most comprehensive debunking of the legend, a book titled The Bermuda Triangle Mystery, Solved. His methodology was simple, but revolutionary for the topic. He ignored the sensationalist books and went back to the primary sources. He read the original Navy and Coast Guard reports, the archives of the weather data, and the contemporary newspaper accounts. What he found was a consistent pattern of fabrication and misinformation by the myth's proponents. He found authors like Berlitz frequently omitted critical details, like the existence of severe storms at the time of a disappearance. He discovered that a large percentage of the incidents cited in the books had actually occurred far outside any reasonable definition of the triangle's boundaries. He documented how authors cannibalized each other's unverified and sloppy research, with rumors being embellished with each retelling. In some cases, ships and boats reported as vanished had in fact returned to port safely, but this crucial follow-up was never mentioned by the myth makers. Couchet's research was definitive, and the official verdict from every responsible agency is unanimous in its dismissal of the legend. The U.S. Coast Guard officially states that it does not recognize the existence of the so-called Bermuda Triangle, and that a review of casualties has not discovered anything that would indicate that casualties were the result of anything other than physical causes. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, concurs, stating, "There is no evidence that mysterious disappearances occur with any greater frequency in the Bermuda Triangle than in any other large, well-traveled area of the ocean." And perhaps the final nail in the coffin comes from the marine insurance market, Lloyd's of London. The people whose business is the precise calculation of risk have confirmed that their data shows no unusual number of sinkings in the region. Critically, Lloyd's of London does not charge higher insurance premiums for vessels transiting the Bermuda Triangle. The evidence is overwhelming. The Bermuda Triangle is a manufactured mystery.
So why does it endure? The myth persists not because of the quality of its evidence, but because it taps into our deep-seated fascination with the unknown. A story of a time warp or an ancient Atlantean death ray is simply more captivating than the mundane reality of a storm at sea or a pilot's navigational error. The legend of the Bermuda Triangle says less about the Atlantic Ocean and more about our collective appetite for a good mystery. The mystery was never in the water. It was created in the pages of magazines and books. And the real story isn't about what the ocean took. It's about the story we chose to tell ourselves.
So here's the truth. The Bermuda Triangle isn't on any map. It doesn't have special powers. Ships and planes here sink for the same reasons they do everywhere else. Bad weather, human mistakes, and sometimes just terrible luck. But the legend, that lives on. Because mystery is exciting. It sells books, headlines, even YouTube videos. The Bermuda Triangle says less about the ocean and more about us. Our hunger for stories that make the world feel bigger, stranger, more magical than it really is. And maybe that's why this myth will never die.